Okay, hello everyone. Today's topic is about the Free Software Foundation and GNU project. I'm Professor Khushboo. Sorry, you are first subject ma'am. Okay, so here the Free Software Foundation and the GNU project. Today we're going to see this. Okay, in 1983, in 1983. Okay, in 1983, you know this man, what he did. Right? In my previous lecture, I explained about him, how he. Okay. In 1980, Richard Stallman became discussed with the increasing commercialization of computer development. Work that had been done at MIT and with growing limitation demand on software user. After that, Richard Stallman started to create software that gave control to user, right? Which can give the control to the user. He started to develop this software which user can control it, give control to the user. His aim was to create an entire operating system totally free. रिचर्ड स्टॉलमैन का क्या एम था? उसने स्टार्ट किया लाइक सॉफ्टवेयर बनाना जो यूजर को इजीली कंट्रोल हो सके उसमें, और उसका एम था कि हर एक सॉफ्टवेयर को टोटली फ्री बनाना, राइट? After that, he started to create software that gave control to user. His aim was to create entire operating system totally free of the restriction. The restrictions से वो free होनी चाहिए, being demanded by property licensing. Text editor GNU was the first major software development efforts that he created. Right. After that, his next software was Lisp system. Next software he created Lisp. Okay, Lisp system. Okay, so here for his aim to create what? Free from all, free, no restriction should be there. Like this, he was his aim. Okay, so he created after the Lisp system. We comply and finally create GNU project. And after Lisp, he finally create GNU project. First, after this, he created Lisp system. Then after he finally created GNU project. GNU project. Okay, so in 1985, Stallman established the Free Software Foundation. Stallman means Richard Stallman established the Free Software Foundation. He established Free Software Foundation, right? That is FSF. He established this software in 1985. Okay. So to help the generate support for GNU project, to support the GNU project. So in 1985, Stallman established Free Software Foundation to help and generate the support for GNU project. Free Software Foundation has increased into one of the most important organization in the first movement. Okay, while the first FSF goal continued to be finalized of the GNU project operating system. FSF has also taken on part of free software by supporting the protecting the free software. FSF also authorized of copyright too much of source code written the GNU project, right? Ensuring that it always provides free available to user. After that, the next 10 years, Stallman clustered a group of people together who initially developed the whole core utility found in Unix and Unix-like OS, the operating system. In the Unix spread, it contained thousands of small utility programs and tools. This project is still working. Now also this project is working, and it is called as a GNU project. Means which one is working? After the Stallman cluster a group, मतलब उसने group बनाया of peoples. मतलब group थी, बहुत से peoples मतलब developers, programmers का एक group बनाया who essentially develop the whole core utility found, जो कि whole utility को found कर सकती है, जो develop कर सकती है in Unix and Unix like OS, right? And then this project is still working and it is called as GNU project. Many programs have become standard on the BST variants. The first version of Linux kernel was released by Tron in 1994. It combined the GNU utility that are already available from GNU project. GNU project provides most of the essential utilities. We have millions of copies of GNU software at every day. Free Software Foundation. It is non-profit corporation established by Richard Stallman. It is developed in 4 October in 1985 to support and help to free software movement. A copyleft-based movement which missions to promote the universe in freedom, to distribute and change computer software without any restriction. Then being stayed with the targets, only free software is used on the FS computers. So what it is a non-profit, right? Free Software Foundation, that is Free Software Foundation. It's, what its mission is, it is a non-profit, right? It is developing for 1994. This software, 1990. Sorry, it is developing for 1985 to support and help the free software movement. Why? Its purpose to support and help. To support and help to whom? And help to support and help to the free software movement, to the free software movement. Okay. Then so here we can see that it's FSF is a publisher is released in 4 October 1985, and its motto to support the and to help the free software movements. Okay, a copyleft based on movement which mission to be promote the universe freedom. Its mission to promote the universal freedom. Okay, to distribute and change computer software without any restriction. Means anyone can use it, can modify it, can change, and restriction नहीं होना चाहिए. ऐसे इनका मोटो था. Being steady with his targets, only free software is used on the FS. Free software is used on the FSF, means Free Software Foundation computer. So here methodologies of open source history is there, or history of open source software. That is what the computer scientists developed a software for free share in 1950. Developed a software in free share in 1950. Okay. Means what the computer scientists developed the software for free share in 1950. But computer system become a higher complex. Okay, so it developed free software in 1950, but it become way higher complex, and the capable cost of software increased. So they by the 1960s, the capable cost of software increased. So that by the 1960, in 1960, the computer hardware companies were charging for software. Means in 1960 what happened, computer scientists ने क्या free computer scientists ने develop software for freely share. Okay, वो उसने software develop किया for freely share, right? Computer scientists ने for freely share. But in 1960 what happened, in 1916 the computer hardware companies, in 1916 computer hardware companies, what is computer hardware companies were charging for software. They वो charge करने लगी, right? Were charging the software, they're charging for software, and the software was bounded with their product. So 1950 में computer scientists ने sharing किया free software, but in 1916 some of the companies are charging the software, and they was bounded with their product. During the 1970, Unix operating systems run on the multiple computers platform. In 1970, what happened in 1970? Unix OS operating system in 1970. Unix OS operating system run on the multiple computers platform, and that time Unix operating system was much popular in academic circle. Finally, finally, in 9670, what happened? Unix operating system run on the multiple computers platform, and that time Unix operating system was much popular in academic circle. Finally, the large scale adoption of Unix were profitable, not for means HPUX and X. Among the modification of Unix is universally used. In 1980, means in Unix operating system is popular in 1970. 1 minute. Okay, in 1918, what happened here? In 1918, in okay, in 1919, what happened? In 1980, the importance of software was increased, and many in 1918, what happened? Importance of software was increased, and many technologies leaders began speaking out against increasing costs. The means in 1980, importance of software was increased. Okay, the GNA project was developed in 1984. See, 1915 में फ्री साइंटिस्ट ने फ्री सॉफ्टवेयर यूज किया बनाने की कोशिश किया, बट 1916 में बहुत सी कंपनीज ने क्या किया, सॉफ्टवेयर पर चार्जिंग लगाने लगे, राइट. Then in 1970 Unix OS established हुई, right, जो कि बहुत popular हुई. Then in 1980 the importance of software was increased, and many technology leaders began speaking out against increasing costs. The GNA project was developed in 1984. 1 minute. The 19 in 1918, what importance of software was increased, and many 1 minute. Okay, so here what happened in 1980, the importance of software was increased, and many technology leaders began speaking out against increasing cost. Right, the GNU project was developed in 1984. GNU project was developed in 1984, right? The GNU project GNU project was developed in 1980. What happened here? Sorry, some net issue. Okay, here what happened in 1984, GNU project was developed. Okay, so what happened here? GNU project was developed in 1984 to create entire computer operating system, and this operating system was free from constraint to use its source code. मतलब 1984 में GNU project ने free पूरे entire system को free of cost करने की, मतलब anyone can use it. In 1984, GNA project was developed to create what? To create entire computer operating system, and this operating system was free from constraint to use its source code. In the 1991, the Linux operating system came up under the GNA project license. 1991 में 1991 में Linux operating system GNA के अंदर आई. Okay, Linux OS came under the GNA project. You know about Linux system, right? This is also operating system. So in 1991, the Linux operating system came up under the GNA project license. Nowadays, millions of people use the Linux operating system. You are also you, मतलब बहुत से people in Linux OS use कर रहे now अभी आजकल. Finally in 1988, open source software released the source code for its cutting edge web browser in hopes of developing it allow more people to find and fix bugs. Okay, here 1988 open source software released the source code. In 98 finally, in 19 open source code, source software released the source codes for its cutting edges web browser in hopes of developing it allows more people to find and fix bugs, right? So open source today, nowadays we use more software, still commercial license, right? You just hire the rights to use the software, right? You are using many software. Today's developers hire the software for their expertise to design, write, upgrade, and repair the software. But that company still own all rights to software. One of the most great things of open source is that the solve of specific problem for they have and they find the others interest in solving the practice problem. That all about the openness and community. What can open source do for you? What can open source do for you, right? The 60% higher education institute use the open source solution both on the desktop and server. Open source was flexible and control the saving cost is big reason consider here. So open source can do for you, that is the 60% higher education institute use this source code, source solution, open source solution both on the desktop and server, right? And open source was flexible and control the saving cost is big. Open source, here you study about open source, what is the history of open source 1950 से लेके 1950 से फ्री का मतलब ये हिस्ट्री ओपन सोर्स की 50 to 1988 में फाइनली ये ओपन सोर्स फ्री फॉर्म मतलब आज आप लोग ओपन सोर्स सॉफ्टवेयर नो वेरी वेल, यू कैन इजीली fetch the any code and you can change it, you can modify it, and you can use as your requirement, you can make the project right as your requirement. So this happened but इससे पहले 1950 से लेकर 1991 तक बहुत सी प्रॉब्लम्स आई इसमें, जिसको ओवरकम करते करते फाइनल 98 में it's possible for you. In higher education में भी we are using this open source and all. So 1960 में कुछ कंपनियां ने ये जो सॉफ्टवेयर है वो उसके चार्जिंग लेने लगे, राइट? फिर 97 में यूनिक्स ओएस है जो बहुत पॉपुलर हुई, राइट? देन 1980 में क्या हुआ? 1980 में इम्पोर्टेंस software was increased and many technology began the speaking out against increasing cost, right? Cost increase होने के against 1980 में. Okay, then GNU project was developed in 1984. The GNU project he developed for 1984 to create entire operating system, and this operating system was free from constraints to use its source code, right? Then finally before this in 1991 Linux OS system came up under the GNU project, and finally in 1998 open source software released the source code for its cutting edges web browser in hopes of developing it allow more people to find and fix bugs. So here we have seen the open source today. Nowadays we use more software, still commercial license, you just hire and the right to use the software, right? You know, where today's developers hire the software for their expertise, right? To design, to write, to upgrade and repair the software, but that company still own all rights of to software. So 90%, 60% of higher education institutes use this open source solution. Okay, so in today's session we have studied about the free software foundation that is on GNU project. In 1983 Richard Stallman, I have already explained you in my previous lecture that Richard Stallman's work, he described the fourth freedom also. Then finally then 4 October may support the help of this all today's lectures. Okay, today's sessions over here. Thank you. Okay, then open source OSI, open source initiatives. So open source OSI is an organization committed to sponsors open source software, committed to the sponsor open source software. The open source initiative organization was found in Feb 1990. This open source OSI is found in when? In where 1988, Feb 1988, Feb 1980, 1980, 1998. By okay, so the part of group activities. So later in the August 1990, the open source OSI is an organization added a board of directors. Okay. Later in 90 after in 1988 in August month, the open source OSI is an organization added to a broad directors. The OSI is a non-profit uh, corporation who aim is promote the use of open source software in the economical world. Means the aim of OSI is promote the use of open source software in the economical world. In OSI, certificate software, distributed license that guarantees the rights to modify, read, redistribution, and software freely. OSI contains the following elements. OSI contains some elements like source code. Yeah, you know very well. 1 minute. Contain the following elements. Let me. Okay. Okay, like source code. You know what is the source code, how it's used now, right? It's contain the element. Then distribution of license contain the distribute the license, distribution of sorry here distribution of license, then distribution of the license, then free redistribution, okay. After free distribution, okay, so it contains some following elements. OSI contain the following elements like source code, distribution of license, and free redistribution. The OSI is a non-profit corporation who aim to promote the use of open source software in the economical world. The OSI wrote a document. That document is called as open source definition and uses it determine it to consider as a software license open source. OSI requirement is ordered to be considered OSI certificate items must meet the following benchmark, like distribution program must make the source code accessible to user, right? In this the accessible hona chahiye source code to the user. The author or owner of the license of the source code cannot collect authority on distribution of program. No group person or field of can be called or access the program. The owner must allow what modification of the work under the original name. The rights attached to the program not depends on programs design part of the particular software distribution. The license cannot place restriction on the software that is distributed with it. So OSI requirement is an order to consider. This is the certified. It must be following benchmark. These are the benchmark which I said here now. And which benchmark is that distribution program must make the source code accessible to the user. Then license cannot place a restriction on the software that is distributed with it, right? So after this, some principle of open source are there. Principle of open source. Principle of open source. Let's see what is the principle of open source here. Okay, so free means freedom. That is a free principle of open source. Is free means freedom. For free means what? Freedom. Open source is not free. Open source terms were replaced in a free software in 1998 because many people consider free means zero cost, right? Many people consider that free means zero cost, but the meaning of free is nothing but freedom. Many organizations use the open source software and support itself, right? By hiring technical staff with necessary skills that are as follows. Select the expand the most suitable open source software, then integrate the open source software into internal system and embed it, right? Then train any user or new technical staff and so on. Fix any critical defect or bugs that are found. Then organization has a freedom to do these things, but that are not possible with no cost. Then principle of open source as follow, that is principle of openness. First one is that what? Principle of principle of openness. These are the first principle, right? So okay. So here what in this principle, it accept the feedback from web page and provide the mechanism for people to report on each and every time. Here, what's the work of principle of openness here? Is provide what? It is in this principle means in openness, it is accept the freedom from web page and provide the mechanism for people to report on each and everything. It allows everyone to see that freedom and allow all those bugs or defect in another much more uncomfortable state. In this principle, it provides the facility to allow everyone to see the source code so they can review it, right? In this principle, it provides the facility to allow everyone to see the source code so they can review it. Then it provides a public area or form because of the that people can openly criticize and contribute to the implementation and design of the software, right? मतलब in principle of openness में क्या means anyone can having freedom to implement and improvement and implementation can do it. Anyone can do it, the implement and design को implement कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे, okay, और अपना contribution दे सकते हैं. Means if some design को किसी जैसे कि अब मैंने आपको कहा कि everyone's programmers have freedom to use the source code and she can make better project with the help of the source code and which improvement up as per her requirement, right? The availability of the source code and design documents enables the committee to use the software for their personal and professional purpose. Also provide the peer review and feedback on the basis of quality, right? So here it provides peer review. Also it can provide with the help of feedback on the basis of quality. So in principle of openness, that expect the freedom of from web page and provides the mechanism for people to report on each and everything. And it allows everyone to see the feedback, right? Everyone can see the feedback and all those bugs or defect is another much more uncomfortable step. In this principle, it provides a facility to allow everyone to see the source code so they can review it. Okay, in this, everyone can see the source code and it can review it, right? It provides the public area or it's allowed the public area so people can easily implement and design the softwares, right? It is difficult for it is difficult for closed software, right, to accept, but easy for the open source project, right? In open source project it is easy, but in closed source not easy, right? Difficult. So it provides a peer review and feedback on the basis of quality. So that is the first principle of openness. Then next one is what? Principle of transparency. Principle of transparency. Transparency. Okay, let's see. So this is the next principle of OSI, right? Sorry. Okay, so here in this principle of transparency includes this here some things is included. Let's see what publish design documentation. Here include the publish and design documentation, communication about schedule and communication about schedule is included here. Then a public defect tracking system, so they can report and review defect. Public can defect the tracking system, so they can report and review defect. A publish road map, so they know where the administrator plan to take the project, right? Here publish the in transparency. If there is a no transparency, then it is difficult to grow a community. Transparency and openness are two different things. For example, a glass of door in transparent, but it is open or not, it is different matter, right? Transparency is the ability to witness the inner working. Openness is the leading outsiders in so they can participate. Okay, so here in transparency, a published roadmap, so they know where the administrator plan to take the project, right? Is defect tracking system, so they can report and review defect. Then principle of early and often. Third one is principle early and often. Principle of early and often. So in this is the philosophy of the creating information available as early as possible and then edit or update it often. For every open source project, zip archive of the source code are available, right? In every open source project, zip archive of the source code are available. In many projects, there is a current code available in publicly. So developers can easily change the source code. User can review that source code, check it is available to everyone who want to review or use it. So easy, early and often means any source code is available, so developers can easily take it and they can she whatever get change according their requirement, right? So here in principle it is philosophy of creating information available, right, as early as possible, edit or update it often. Then for every open source project having a one zip type archive of zip archive having, so source code are available in this. So in many projects there is a current code available in publicly, so developer can easily change source code, user can review source code, okay, then it check it, then available to everyone who want to review or use it. Then uh, the fourth one is that this one is fourth one is principle here, expectation of community. This is the fourth one, future. So each and every generation grows up with a new and number of expectations, right? Each and every generation is grows up with a new and number of expectation. Example of that, if we consider my parents had the expectation that they need to buy anything. I grew up with the expectation that I could search the internet, right? And my son is growing up with their expectation that the Web 2.0 area where he can participate by submitting Wikipedia entries, right? It comes to open source, the website source, code, roadmap, defect, tracking system, and forms are the project. The community participate in project. The results of openness is nothing but source code and roadmap. The ecosystem of transparency is the defect tracking system and the results of early and often in the design and initial code and using all principle. The result of that nothing but ultimately attract and retain a community. The project is secondary product of the open source principle and community, right? Is the secondary product of the project. Then participation and collaboration are also principle of open source software. Participation and collaboration are also principle of open source software. License of open source software are free to use this software. Then open source software license is a free for making copies of software source code and distributed them without any cost, right? Using this license, we can access and use source code freely. We can combine open source and other software without any cost. So this can come in expectation of the community, right? Then here we have seen the OS open source initiative is a FAB 90. Then so the source code, what is source code, very well, distribution of license, then principle, these are the four principles. Okay, so today's session is over here. Thank you.